And I think that that's so huge, whether you're in real estate or insurance, or even if you're in, a social media influencer like me or a podcaster, it is so, so important just to show up with confidence in who Christ calls you to be and finding that identity outside of that is how I can show up without makeup online and be confident, because I'm like, you know what? Take it or love it. This is how God designed me to be. And so I feel like doing those reps, though, is what does continue to build the active practice and confidence.
Welcome to Heels, Handbags, and Hustle. Step in faith, carry love, pursue God's calling. This is your host, Rachel Earp, and I'm so delighted that you found my show. My podcast is dedicated to encouraging women to be more bold, confident, and secure in their work and femininity. I've had the privilege of bringing on many outstanding women who share their journeys, stories, and successes with us. I believe women should embrace their God-given gifts and abilities without the entanglements of fear, comparison, or past mistakes. As a wife, business owner, and mom of 2 boys, one with Down syndrome, I have found such joy in the community of supportive women. My prayer is that this podcast elevates each person who listens and inspires a closer walk with God. Now, let's get to it, friends. Hey, friends. Pausing this episode really quick to tell you about today's sponsor, Wally phone cases. I happen to have one right here. For those of you who are listening, y'all just need to get on my YouTube channel and see how beautiful these phone cases are, with a soft leather-like feel, a strap here for you to easily just tuck your hands and your fingers, whatever, in there and do, the selfie thing or whatever it is you like to do. And there's a pocket in the back also for you to put a business card or your credit card, whatever it is. Love that. There's also a lot of other accessories, but here's what I love the most about Wally is their story. And y'all know I'm all about the stories. So Wally was founded by a husband and wife team who came from their own trauma and decided to take that trauma and use it to bring light and happiness to other people. And we're always glued to our phones, so I totally get this whole concept. And they have a Wally Gives Back Foundation. Proceeds from their phone cases go back to beautiful causes that they share about. Their social media is stunning, and they just make you feel so special, and just how they present the cases, how much they love on their customers. And I love supporting and shopping from small business owners. So check out the link in the show notes for a special discount that you can get from listening to this episode today, and get your own Wally phone case to enjoy. I guarantee everyone's going to be asking you where you got it. Thanks so much, guys, for listening, and hope you will check it out for yourself. Hey, friends, welcome to another episode. I promised you that I would have such a beautiful and amazing guest today, and I've already raved about her just a few minutes ago, so I'm just going to get right into it. Heather Brown, what an honor to have you on today. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Yeah, for sure, Rachel. I'm so excited to be here with you, and I just love getting to meet you at our retreat in the Smokies. And so to get to be on the podcast platform that we both love is also a super fun follow-up. So I'm like, woo, glad to be here.
Oh my gosh. Well, I absolutely adore you. And it was so much fun. For those of you who are listening, I had gone to an authors and podcasters retreat, which was phenomenal, hosted by Rebecca George, who, if you've listened to previous episodes, she's been on my podcast twice. And it was just so life-giving to all just be in one beautiful cabin in the Smokies, just being ourselves. And Heather came in, swept all of us off of our feet, and she's just so adorable. I'm like, can you please come on my podcast? And here she is.
Let's do it.
Do it. So Heather, again, thank you for coming on, and I'd love for you, who is Heather Brown? Where did you come from? How did you get from, what was the beginning? What's the origin story? Because people who may already know you and have been following you, or who are going to listen to this episode and go follow you right now, start at chapter 1. I mean, you don't have to go I was born 6 pounds and 8 ounces. We don't have to go that far back.
Well, and I was not that cute size. I was actually 9'9" when I was born, and my grandmother.
Oh, this is great.
Told my mom, she was like, "Well, you just gave us a little prize fighter baby, I guess." So yeah, there's that. more than you bargained for. But I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, and I love the Lord, and that's who I am first and foremost as a Christ follower. And I really love, much like Rachel, to encourage other people. So much so that I was a cheerleader in junior high and high school. I played volleyball. I've always lived a really active lifestyle because my parents always tell me, golly, you're like the Energizer Bunny. Like, you just got to get the energy out somewhere. So fast forward, and then I went to Stanford University here in Birmingham for college and met my husband, Eric. We met our freshman year and we dated all throughout college. And then this is kind of a deep dive, but we got engaged over in Spain when he was traveling abroad. So that was super fun. And now we've been married for 16 years. So I joke that our marriage is old enough to drive. And we have 2 boys, Leighton and Finn. And I'm just a really active boy mama. And I'm also the online personality behind Healthy by Heather Brown. I have a podcast that's newish. It's been only about 2 years old. And then it's my latest passion project. And then I run all the social media. So if you go to healthybyheatherbrown.com, that's kind of the hub where my Instagram, TikTok, all the things and places you want to find me live there.
So much fun. And I love so many pieces of your story. And one of the things that I found so refreshing, especially in this, we'll talk about social media for just a moment, because you have built such a beautiful platform and following there. And I think one of the things that struck me about you on there is the Heather that's on there is very much the Heather that you would meet on the street or bump into in the grocery store, at the coffee shop. Like, you're so very authentic. And I think it's difficult to really let that shine on social media these days, because there's a lot of personas, expectations, feeling like you have to be perfect, look perfect all the time. And you just let real life shine through. So talk a little bit about what that looked like when you first, was like, hey, I'm just going to start, posting my life on social media, and you developed Healthy by Heather Brown. So what were the pieces that you were weaving into the beginning?
Yeah, for sure. So I joke around and say that I'm a dinosaur blogger because I started blogging before it was even really a thing that people did as a career. And there was no social media when I first started blogging. But I honestly got my start very humbly by blogging about deals. So like, me and my husband were on a really tight budget. And so I would blog and post about how we would shop for $40 a week for our groceries. And so that was really kind of just where I got started. And then, Facebook and Pinterest kind of started to come about. But I was also a journalism and mass communication major, and I had thought about doing broadcast before. So I always loved being on camera, and, I love people. I'm a people person. So my minor was in sociology. I loved finding out like what made people tick and what made people do certain behaviors and all these different things, very heavy into marketing. So I was working full time in a marketing role, and then started the blog part-time. And then I also was teaching Pure Barre, which is a ballet bar-based exercise class that fuses together.
Oh, way. Are you serious? Okay, I have to interject this little pause.
Oh, girl, what?
Because I talked about this like a week ago. One of my closest friends just became certified in Pilates. So I went to a Pilates class for the first time. And in the midst of my awkwardness and total lack of agility, I sat there watching everybody else look like graceful swans. And I'm like, it awakened this deep longing that I have, this dream that I would even call it a dream, but like this thing that since I was a young girl, I was always fascinated by barre. And because it incorporates the elements of the ballet and the strength and core of Pilates and all the things, and I just always thought, if there's anything that I would love to do just to be more physically healthy and fit, it would be that. Yeah. But I had forgotten about it for so long, and I had no idea that you actually teach it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I hate that we live so far away.
I know, dang it. I'm like, that's such a cool God wink moment, though. I'm like, you need to go to the class tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. It's crazy because I came home and I told my husband, because I am so much into the arts and classical music and grace, like just the gracefulness, the poise. And I have always struggled finding the whole working out thing, and exercise has been a struggle for me my whole life because I never really found something I enjoyed. It was always a drudgery.
Yes.
I gotta go get my steps in, or I gotta go lift some weights, and I hate it and I don't look cute doing it. And it's like,
Which is not true, because I saw Rachel in workout clothes walking and doing a stretch with me in them Smokies, and she does look cute. So don't let her lie to you like that.
Thank you, but I didn't feel cute, Not that I would look cute in whatever you wear when you do barre either. I'm gonna, that's like goals.
It's so much fun. Yes. So you should definitely do bar. And that is the thing. I mean, I obviously talk a lot about exercise and health and all the things on my account, but that's the main thing is like when people say that they hate working out or that they don't like it, I'm like, well, you just haven't found the thing that you love yet. So I would just encourage you to keep trying different things. And also, Rachel, to your point though, I think that between having the journalism mass comm background and then also teaching, a fitness class and working out, truly that does build so much confidence. I feel like not just for me, but for women in general. And so if you're listening to this and maybe you're an entrepreneur or you're a woman who is in business, and you, unfortunately, part of business nowadays is like you do have to show up online. You've got to show up on your Instagram stories. You've got to show up on social media. And so I feel like even if you just start working out, even like 3 days a week, even if you just walk, or even if you, just go to the Y and have a friend and y'all go to a yoga class, whatever it is, just to get active in some way, that really does, I feel like, build up my confidence to show up online.
Yeah.
And so I remember when, YouTube first started being a thing, and then Facebook had videos, and now obviously there's Instagram stories. I felt like I had all these like doing the reps practices of showing up in workout classes and showing up, in Bible studies, learning who my true confidence comes from. So it's now just like, okay, I just have to show up on video as how I would to my friends or my family or what have you. And I think that that's so huge, whether you're in real estate or insurance, or even if you're in, a social media influencer like me or a podcaster, it is so, so important just to show up with confidence in who Christ calls you to be, and finding that identity outside of like, that is how I can show up without makeup online and be confident, because I'm like, you know what? Take it or love it. Like, this is how God designed me to be. And so I feel like doing those reps, though, is what does continue to build the active practice and confidence.
Yeah, I love that. And you make it sound so much more attainable, because oftentimes we think of that aspect of maybe it's, the working out or X, however you want to call it. And we think we have to do this massive, I got to get up at 4 a.m., go to the gym for 2 hours and do it 5 days a week or 6 days a week. And I'm just going to have this gorgeous body or whatever we're attaining. I hope it's more wrapped around the aspect of health. But for some of us, it's just like, I just want to look better. Because it feels so overwhelming and daunting, we just freeze up and we don't do anything. And like you said, there's something for the physical activity that does so much for your mind and your spirit as well. And just giving you more of that boost of confidence to show up and being authentic though, and remembering that at the end of the day, even that person that you think has it all put together, their life looks perfect, they've got it going on, and you're like, man, I am so wanting to be that person. There's so much more to their daily life and to their they're human beings, and they have things that they struggle with. They might have confidence issues. They might be looking at you and thinking, wow, what a gifted speaker, what a gifted author. And I can't do that. But I think that is when you learn and understand that it's okay to not be that person. I need to just work on myself and discover, who am I meant to be? What are the things that give me joy? What are the things that I really love? Because the more we pursue that, instead of pursuing that persona or that lifestyle that we think will make us happy, the more we will just be authentic. We were talking about the social media, and you started as a dinosaur blogger, and look at where you are now. I'm sure that was a big adjustment, and talk about how you were able to adapt from blogging and just writing about you're saving $40, or no, not saving $40, but shopping $40 budget. I loved your reel the other day while you were doing your makeup and you're in the mirror and you're just dancing. And I'm like, how does she do that?
Oh, that's so funny.
How did you pivot?
I do want to point out, though, Rachel, exactly what you said, though. Like, now I am so comfortable being on camera, and like camera, I feel like is where I really thrive. But like Rachel is a much better writer than I am, obviously. Like, I don't have a book. I'm not an author. So like where Rachel could whip out, a devotional probably in 30 minutes, I'm going to have to sit there and like labor and stress and struggle and ask ChatGPT to edit it 14 times and all those kind of things. So I think you're exactly right. Like, you have to lean in to where the Lord has gifted you. And that's why he has gifted you in that one area, because he wants you to use it for your glory. And how boring would it be if we all were just great writers, or if we all were just great people to show up on camera, or just great real estate agents, or whatever area it is that he's called you to. But all that to say, so going back to social media, I feel like, Rachel, one of the things that was probably one of the biggest mile markers for me in my social media growth was probably around when I had hit 100,000 followers on Instagram, which is a really big milestone. I was like really working hard to get that for years, y'all, years. It's not an overnight success story, that's for sure. It probably took me about, I don't know, almost a decade to get to that many followers, because it just was slow, steady, put in the daily work grind to get there. But then my account actually got hacked. And so I lost everything. I started at ground zero. And I mean, I was wigging out. Like, we were, at this point, I already had a team in place that was helping me manage the platform of my website and all the social media accounts. But we were getting emails from our sponsors already being like, we're pulling these ads because, we contracted you for this, but we were under the impression you'd be reaching this many people. So literally I was watching my business just crumble because all the advertisers that are supporting me, my family, my employees are like pulling out. I'm contacting Instagram. I'm doing everything that I know how to do. And you know how Instagram's customer support is like literally the worst. I don't know how they get away with it.
I know.
But you get in touch with no one.
Yeah.
And long story short, honestly, just God's grace. But I think it was 4 or 5 days later, I got my entire account restored, which is just huge and almost unheard of.
Yeah.
But it taught me so much about diversifying my revenue streams, diversifying where all I am on different platforms. And so I think that, like I said earlier, like, you're doing the reps, you're continuing to, work really hard. Like, I worked at the blog for 12 years before I felt comfortable to add in a podcast. And I worked at the blog for, 9 years before Pinterest and Instagram became a thing. And Instagram stories didn't come along until 5 years ago? I mean,
yeah.
So it's fairly, or 6 years ago maybe, but it's fairly new. And so I think that is the biggest thing in this industry. And if you have an online business, is that you just have to remember the only thing you can count on Instagram to do is change. That's the only thing you can do. So you have to be willing to pivot, like they say in Friends with the couch. Pivot.
It's really true. And I think when we have that understanding going into it, is people look at social media as it's a very love-hate relationship. And many of us also want to skip the working part and just jump right into massive followings. And we forget that the purpose is to share a message.
Yes.
And it's so important to know and understand what your message is. And once you've got that figured out, being able to also recognize that there are other ways you can share your message. This is just one of the tools, guys. This is not everything. But a lot of times we invest so much into it. I can only imagine how that you must have felt putting so much into it, finally getting and building, and then in an instant, everything just crumbling. How did you process through that? I probably would have completely had a nervous breakdown and just sat on the floor and cried.
That happened too, right? Yeah, that's a great question. So I do think that one thing that sets us apart as successful women entrepreneurs, and Rachel, I feel like you obviously have this within you too, is just that you can't give up. Yes, I sat there on the floor and I cried and I was wigging out and I'm calling all the people and getting scrappy and praying and just doing everything in my power I knew how to do. But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, one of my biggest strengths in gifting, like I said, is people and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought, okay, what am I going to do now? I do have this network of bloggers, friends, family, people that can help me find like people to help me. So the first thing I did was I went like, let's say that my account name then was Healthy by Heather Brown. It wasn't, but I immediately went on Instagram and I made a new account called Healthy by Heather Brown 1. So that way, even if someone went on Instagram was looking for me, they would at least find the new account and be able to follow it. So I was like, that way I'm being strategic that hopefully they would find me. And then I sent out an email to my email list and was like, hey guys, this is what's happened. Here's the new Instagram account. Please come there and, help me. If you know anyone that works in the tech world or knows somebody that would know someone at Instagram, please contact me. I made a blog post about it. I made now it's X, but I made a tweet about it. Anywhere in social media that I could get the word out that I had been hacked, my account was taken down. Then I like went into major PR effort of like how to get this out. And then on the new account, I started direct messaging some of my closest blogging friends that had big following that I felt like we had a lot of overlap. And I was like, hey, this is Heather. I know you can't tell. This is my new backup account. This is what happened to me. Do you mind sharing on your Instagram or your Instagram stories that this is my new account? And I mean, it's not like I got close to what I was, but on that backup account, I did get it up to about 4,000 within a few weeks. And so, as you know, Rachel, that's hard to do. Instagram's like giving you followers easily. So, I just honestly got really scrappy. I went back to like my PR marketing brain. How can I like crisis management this?
Yeah.
And then I'm so grateful that honestly, the Lord worked on my behalf to get me in touch with people who knew people. And then they helped me get my account restored.
Oh, wow.
Really wild.
That's crazy. What a wild little plot twist and like that story. That's the stuff though. People, I love to learn this and know, pulling back the curtain and you're looking at behind the scenes. And that's where we can really appreciate, like you had a lot of grit through that. Like, let's get scrappy. How can I do damage control? Like where your mind can go back to a reset and like, okay, well, this is what it is. What do I need to do to, even if it's building a new platform from scratch, you were willing to do that work. And I think that's the important thing. Once again, we touched on earlier was doing the work. If something happens like that and you just give up, then nothing's going to happen. It's just going to stay pretty dreary, and sometimes those things suck tremendously and you can't control it. You can't see it happening.
Yes. And Rachel, I will say too, that one of the biggest lessons I took away from that was I do not own my Instagram account. I do not own my Facebook account. I do not own my YouTube. I do not own my Pinterest. What I do own is my website, my email list, and now my podcast. But everything else can be out of my control. So if you're listening to this and you only have an Instagram account or you only have a Facebook page for your business, let me highly encourage you to learn from my mistakes and go create an email list, because that is the only thing that you own, and or a website and or, a podcast, some kind of platform where you can own and control the communication you have with your clients or your customers. Or, I call my community the girl gang. I can control this communication with the girl gang.
I love it. So for the person who maybe we'll kind of change course a little bit here. I think no matter what type of industry you're in or business, whether it's a side hustle or maybe you have your own company that you've started, or you're just a professional trying to grow a brand, whatever the thing is, social media has so quickly become such an essential part of your success story. And for many people, they just get discouraged so quickly because once again, we're thinking of, well, it needs to be this amount of followers or this much engagement. And you just get so confused because it changes so much. What are some words of advice for the beginner who maybe they're just looking at you now and like, oh, I can't ever attain that. Or I don't know how to be comfortable on social media. Do you have some words of advice for that?
Yeah.
That girl who's listening, someone else to add into your girl gang.
Yeah, for sure.
Bring them into the fold, Heather.
Yeah, phone a Heather. I'm like, I'll give you a pep talk on Instagram if you need. You guys just turn on the camera and go. But to your point, I think it is like what we talked about earlier, just doing the reps. So y'all, I know you hear this all the time, but it's true. Consistency, consistency, consistency. My audience knows that I'm going to be on my Instagram in feed and or in my stories every single day. So if for some reason the algorithm doesn't serve me to them, if they are a diehard Healthy by Heather Brown girl, they're going to come search me out and find me would be number one, because I'm so consistent. They know to expect me to be in their feed or in their stories every single day. I will say that during times of the season, or times of your year, times of your busy season or not busy season, depending on your business, I would encourage you to pull back sometimes though, and be able to, like, I announce it a lot of times when we go into a slower season. I'll be like, hey y'all, just want to let you know, I'm taking Sundays off for this month. You won't see me. Or, hey, we're going on a family vacation. You won't see me for the next 4 days. Like, I'm out. And then that way though, I'm still communicating. I'm still operating as a professional, being like, hey, you're not going to see my lights on in my online storefront and my Instagram, but I'm still here. I'm just closed for the long weekend. Just like if someone drove up to your nail salon or your coffee shop or your whatever, you would have a sign on the door that said, closed, but I'll be back on this date and time. To me, it's like, if you want social media to be your business, you want to take it full time, you have to treat it like a business. So that would be number one. And then number two, like we talked about earlier, getting the reps. You've got to get the reps of showing up, being uncomfortable on camera. And honestly, y'all, people find it more endearing when you just show up. And if your kid yells, okay, let them yell. They're like, hey girl, me too. My kids yell in the background, you know? They don't
true.
Yeah, they don't want you to come polished and made up all the time and like pristine white background. It's like, that is unrelatable. Unfollow, because I don't have time for that kind of thing in my life. So
true.
Yeah,
so true.
The more real, the better. People can see through, and I mean, excuse my French, but people can see through the BS. Like, they know when you're being all like, you know, too uptight, you're not showing your real life. So that's one thing that I've had to learn, Rachel, over the past few years too, because we went through a lot of family trauma. I lost my sister-in-law about 3 years ago now to cancer. And then I also lost my mother-in-law last August to dementia and Alzheimer's. And so there is a line where, like, I had to be in communication with my spouse of what is he comfortable with me showing and sharing online. Because some people, and that's the thing you were talking about earlier, you don't see the full story. Some people had no idea that I was crying off camera, wrecked because I was losing one of my best friends and like a second mom to me. But Eric wasn't comfortable with me sharing that much on camera. So it's like, well, if I can't share that because I care obviously more about my family and my husband and protecting our peace than I do being real online, but I can show you online my mess or that I've had a hard day. Or I might even say on camera, like, y'all, I just was weeping in the car. This worship song just like got me on my knees. It was so good. If you're struggling today, go listen to this song. But like, y'all, that's where the good stuff is. God wants you to show up in your mess and show other believers that it's okay to be struggling and that you struggle with sin and hurt and all these things too. Even if you can't share the nitty gritty, you've got to know what your line is, show up, be consistent, and get in the reps. That's my best advice.
No, that's so good. And it's our testimony.
Yeah.
You look at so many different examples that Jesus gave where whether he healed someone or whatever the situation was, he would tell them to go tell people. Yeah. And that was the thing that, whether it's a joy and a triumph or a heartache, that is where the connection comes in with other people. And if you really want to see those higher levels of success, then you have to be willing to be vulnerable sometimes. You have to be willing to do, those pieces of the communication where people see that I relate to this person. I like them. They said something that just really resonates with me, or they have a great sense of humor and I'm funny too. And, or it's maybe it's bonding over the same kind of coffee order, whatever the thing is.
Yes. Yeah.
If we don't share those things, the personalities, the vulnerabilities, even if it's a new project that you're working on, It doesn't have to be poof, here it is, let people in it, invite people in. And I think that can be a hard to incorporate, especially if it doesn't come natural for you. It is hard, it's something you have to almost purposefully and intentionally focus on. And it might not even feel natural at first. And I think that's okay. I think people need to understand, like, you're gonna feel weird about it. You might feel like, for you, sometimes it might not feel too weird or awkward, but for some people, maybe it does. And I think that that's okay to recognize, this just feels weird to me, but I know the more you mentioned the reps, like just working out at the gym. If you haven't worked out in a while, it doesn't feel great.
No.
It's uncomfortable.
And Rachel, that's such a good point. I used to always say, when people would come into my Pure Barre classes and they'd be like, I haven't worked out in 5 years. Like, all these women look so cute and like they know what they're doing. Everyone's gonna be looking at me. I don't know what you're talking about. And I would always say, hey, you've already done the hardest part. The hardest part was just showing up. You literally walked through the door. You got yourself here. You're already dressed. Now you just have to let me do the work for you. I'll tell you what to do. But I think that is what is so important about community too, is like, y'all, people, if you're a real estate agent in the real estate industry, if you're an insurance person, people in the insurance agencies. If you're wanting to be an influencer, you're going to start meeting people that are also doing your type of work. Tell them, have an accountability partner, and be like, listen, one thing I'm working on doing right now is showing up on my stories every day. Do you mind just like giving me some feedback? Like, what did you think was funny? What hit you? What made you be like, ooh, me too? But you have to remember that, like, what Rachel's saying is true. If you're like, I cannot show up on camera, I cannot do a video. Okay. Well, but stories sell. And if you haven't read the book, isn't it called Story Branding or Story Brand? So it's ultimately like, even when I launched my podcast, I hired lady to help me with launching it and what that looked like. And she was like, do not make the mistake of just showing up one day and being like, got a podcast, guys, go listen. She's like, no one will care because you didn't take them along for the journey, for the struggle, for the story. So let's say that I wanted to promote this episode with Rachel right now on my social media, and I don't feel comfortable talking on camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get out my phone. I'm going to say, hey, Rachel, do you care if I take a picture real quick? Guess what? Most people don't care if you take a picture on Zoom, or you don't even have to tell them if it's like 15 people on a Zoom. Get out your camera, snap a picture of y'all on Zoom. Or even if Rachel didn't want me to take her picture, I could take a picture of like my water bottle right out of screen right here and just show the corner of my computer. Upload that photo to my Instagram stories that day or your Instagram in feed and be like, working on such an exciting project coming out soon with @Rachel. What is your Instagram handle? I'm blanking.
I am Rachel Earp.
Yes. You could say working on something exciting with I am Rachel Earp and post that to your story that day. Right. You didn't have to show up. You didn't have to show your face. You didn't have to talk, but you still showed up to start being like teasing the story. Like, ooh, what's she working on? I wonder what that's going to be. And then maybe let's say that my podcast with Rachel was the big thing I was trying to promote. That was like my launch. Then maybe the next day I would post a picture of my breakfast and I'd be like, praying through upcoming projects this week, still thinking about yesterday's conversation with I am Rachel Earp. And then maybe the next day I take a picture of the sunset and be like, oh my gosh, such a full day of meetings. So pumped for my project launching in 2 weeks. Can't wait to bring you into the fold. And then maybe you even ask a question like, what are you grateful for today? But it's just continuing that storyline that then keeps building. So then when I'm like, y'all, I'm launching the podcast episode with Rachel, they're all like, that's what she was talking about. Right. Now we can be excited with you. Yay, it's here.
Yes, that's so good. And I love that you break it down into steps. That makes so much sense. It doesn't have to be a big production. Yep. Like all the lights and oops, as I'm hitting my microphone. Guys, you don't have to have this. Like, when I first started podcasting, I didn't do video. I didn't have a mic. I literally was just doing it because I love it. I'm going to show up and it's not going to sound probably pretty. In fact, I accidentally re-listened to an old 2-year episode. Not accidentally, actually, it was very intentionally because I was sharing it with a friend where one of the podcast guests, I knew this connection needed to happen. This episode was just so spot. And here 2 years later, this episode is for her.
Mm.
So I sent it to her and I thought, well, I'm going to listen to it while I'm cooking. So I pressed play and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that was my little jingle in the beginning. And I sound so bad. But that's the journey. That recorded, timed, date stamped, everything. And yeah, I could be like, oh, I need to take those episodes off and start fresh because I'm so much better now. But no, people will see clearly and hear the evolution of the Heels and Hustle podcast,
Yes. Rachel, that's so funny that you say that because I just had to re-listen to an old episode of mine too for something we're doing for a future project. And I was like, whoa, I did not know how bad I sounded at the time.
Right?
The little things you learn, like how you shouldn't interrupt a guest usually when they're talking, and I would be like, yes, yeah, and I was like, oh my god, this is awful, like that. But that's so awesome because then you see how far you've come, which is such a cool journey.
It is. And honestly, a very similar thing happened to me with my first book that I have published. I wrote when I was 19.
Wow.
And I had not read my book in over a decade because I was so afraid that it was going to be so terrible that I was going to be embarrassed and I was going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm ashamed of don't read it. Well, I finally thought, I need to get over this because I need to see from a different perspective, how have I grown? Yeah. And I needed to go back. And so I sat on my bed and I opened it up and I started reading, and I was so heartwarmed reading it, that version of myself. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't what I would write now, but it wasn't terrible. It was me then. And I'm actually proud of her. I'm proud of what God and it all. It's at the end of the day, our growth is a reflection of the foundation that we build, and you build upon that foundation. And sometimes, yes, you start over. Like you said, that the storms come. I mean, recently we just went through a hurricane. I know all about the storms. And we had to do repairs to our home. We had to rebuild certain things, and that is life. But we don't have to skip through that because that's where the growth happens, is actually in the hard times. That is when we grow. It's not when everything is just smooth sailing and tiptoeing through the tulips. We don't really grow. We just kind of tiptoe. We just keep going. There's a difference between when you keep going, but you don't keep growing. And I would rather keep growing, even if it means I have to stop for a moment, or I have to pause or look back, or take the time to sow and build. And it's going to slow down. It might not be at breakneck speed, and that's okay.
Yes, I so agree. And Rachel, I told you a little bit about that struggle, but also, I mean, I'm sure that most of your audience felt this too, but after 2020 and just all that was, I also felt like social media really took a dramatic change in the way that Instagram even allowed you to talk about things or what have you. And I felt like as a Christian influencer that my account just never recovered really, or did as well as it had before with just reach and the way that people would find my account. And my husband was like, Heather, I just feel like ever since I've seen these news sites take down comments and censorship is becoming more of an issue that we're up against. And obviously Christian beliefs, they're not the wide road, that's the narrow road. And so I do feel like my account really has been docked even in my views over the past several years. And so that's been a really interesting journey to watch too, because I get paid based on my page views or my story impressions or my reels or those kind of things. And so I've just had to really release that to the Lord and be like, okay, God, I still feel like you're calling me to this. And even if only 500 people see this post that I do today, or if only 100 people see this email newsletter that goes out because it gets caught in some kind of spam filter or whatever, I'm trusting that you're getting that message to the people that you wanted to hear it that day. And I think that there's just so much freedom that comes in that. And I certainly struggle often with falling back in but this is so frustrating and why can't da-da-da-da. But the Lord always is so sweet to remind me, all right, Heather, we've been here before, but I'll walk you through it again, So anyway, I just think that everybody has different struggles in their own business and in their own, social media climate or what have you. But ultimately, if you're walking in alignment with what the Lord's called you to do, he's going to use the people that you're reaching for his glory either way.
That's so good. I appreciate you actually bringing it up, because that is the where the obedience comes in, and knowing that at the end of the day, the greater message and the greater purpose, the greater calling is to make sure that I'm not ever censoring him.
Yeah.
Even though I might feel like I'm being censored, I can still show up, be authentic. I have to surrender. You use that word surrender, and I am really learning. That has been my word of the last few weeks is surrender is a hard but beautiful process, because it really takes the pressure off of us. That is the beautiful part of surrender, because we're giving it to him. So instead of us this mic, I keep bumping my mic. Instead of us holding it and carrying it and just trudging through because we're afraid to release, it is a burden. It is such a burden to put on ourselves to think even you mentioned with the censorship or feeling like, well, maybe I shouldn't say this or I might get penalized. I know what you're saying, and I'm still in that right now.
Yeah.
I had gone from such tremendous growth. I lost over 50,000 followers and plummeted down, and I'm just seeing thousands. I'm like, what is going on? And I finally had to come to terms with God will multiply. God will let it get into the ears, the eyes, the hands of the people that can still make such a difference in your productivity and your success. Does not have to be dependent on just, that one thing.
Yeah.
So it's just being able to, okay, I'm doing my part. God, you're going to have to do the rest.
Exactly. And Rachel, it's so interesting that you're talking about surrender being your word that you feel like the Lord keeps bringing to mind the past couple of weeks. I was actually just listening to a sermon before we got on this podcast, and I'll send you the link if you want to link it in the show notes. But the pastor he's here in Birmingham at Redeemer. I think it's Pastor Joel Brooks, but he talked about how in every picture or artwork that you see depicting the Last Supper of Jesus, you see typically his hands clasped, and even how when you see an emoji with the prayer, it's always your hands clasped. Mm-hmm. And he was like, but, we think that it's prayer looks like this, and that basically God was saying you should pray with your hands together for some reason. But he said it's actually not that. Historically, Christians and people of faith had their hands together, and Jesus did there because he was surrendering to soldiers. And so he was talking about how you put your hands together so that they could handcuff you. And ultimately he was surrendering to God. I am laying down my life, to drink from this cup of your wrath, to take care of our people and to redeem us as believers. And how all throughout history, there's so much documentation of how when soldiers would come to arrest the church or to arrest people for living out their belief, that they would put their hands together, because he didn't come with a sword. He came with just prayer and turning the other cheek, and truly Christians are called to surrender and lay our lives down for the cause of the cross. And so I just feel like that's so cool. And I just heard that sermon, and now you're saying that. So I'll have to send you the link to the sermon too, so you can listen to it. It was so good. Oh my gosh.
Please do. We all need to hear this now. I did not know that, actually. I always thought it was this posture thing, but it totally makes sense. I love it when you find there's such a deeper meaning to something, and it's ooh, this just got even better now,
Yes. And Rachel, you have to, I'm pulling up my Spotify so I can tell you who sings it, but there is a song called Surrendered, and it was my battle cry when my mother-in-law was getting really bad with the dementia and the Alzheimer's that ultimately took her life. But this song Surrendered, I would literally just blast it at 50 volume and just scream and cry and praise the Lord in it. And it's just such a sweet song to me now. So I'll have to, okay. It's Surrendered by One House, Amanda Cook, Mitch Wong, And so like several different artists, but you need to listen to it. It is so good. And it goes right along with what the Lord's showing you right now. So yeah.
Yes. Oh, I definitely cannot wait to hear it. We'll definitely send that to me too. We'll have to share that also. And you've shared so much. Like, I feel like we covered so many good and deep things. And I just want to thank you for spending time to pour into all of us today. I so admire the way that you show up. It's beautiful, just so beautiful. You're like a magnet where people cannot help but love you and adore you. And that comes by just being who God created you to be. And, that is a testimony in of itself that, you are his masterpiece and he is using you to reach so many people. So thank you for your wisdom. As kind of to put a bow on this, and I'm thinking so much, I've been seeing, speaking of social media, as total squirrel moment, I'm obsessed with all of these bow decor things. Have you seen like the little bows in the hair and the bows on the bedding and the pillows and the
see them bow earrings right now? I just bought a new bow. I'm obsessed with it. Yes.
Oh my gosh, me too. I'm like, anyways. So to put a pretty little bow on the episode with Heather today, what is the last word of wisdom that you could share? I know we talked about Instagram. Is that like your main place? Is there anything else? Tell us all the things.
Yeah, for sure. So in closing, I would just say, I just want to encourage you that you are exactly where God has you right now, even if you're in a really hard season and maybe you're walking through some of the struggles that Rachel and I have talked about with either censorship or even with just imposter syndrome or not wanting to show up. God has called you to where you are right now. And so I'm just asking you to show up faithfully and serve him where he has you, even if it's in a hard season. I've just walked through a couple of really, really hard seasons for years and years. And I'm just so grateful that the Lord is faithful and that he has continued to show himself and draw me closer to him in those struggles. And I'd also ask you to go listen to that song, Surrendered, because it is just so good. And last but not least, please come follow me. Like you said on Instagram, Rachel, it's @Healthy by Heather Brown. And that I love Instagram and it's so fun to show up there. And I have a broadcast channel where I feel like I really do just get to share all the things unfiltered. And I share a lot about making America healthy again and just like what's going on with our kids and school systems and things that, again, I feel like I can't share necessarily publicly on Instagram, but that broadcast channel is where I really pour in and I go deep and deeper than I feel like I can on my reels or what have you.
I love your broadcast channel.
Yes. And then also check out the podcast because the podcast is Healthy by Heather Brown. It comes out every Tuesday. And that is where I really also deep dive with people on like just questioning all the things from mainstream media, questioning what the big like CDC, NIH, all those kind of things come at us and tell us. And this season right now is on kids' health and mind, body, and spirit. So it's been just like such a God-directed season to help open parents' eyes up to what really is going on in the schools. What are your kids coming across? How can you be proactive in educating your kids about what are good pictures, what are bad pictures, how to look out for pornography, like all these things that we as parents have to, unfortunately, we want to be in the world, but not of it. And so I'm asking you guys to come join me in that podcast journey and learn about the things you can armor yourself up with, Mama, to make the best choices, not only for your health, but your kids too.
So good. I love, love, love that you go into those conversations and topics because so needed, so relevant for the time that we are in right now.
Yes.
And there's just not enough people talking honestly about all of it. One of the things I love is you just really go deep and ugly, break everything down and talk about the hard things because we need to talk about the hard things. So
absolutely.
I will definitely make sure to link all of that in the show notes. And to end the episode, I'm going to do what you said. I'm going to take a picture.
Yeah, do it.
For those of you watching, you get to be a part of this epic moment. Okay. We're going to okay, I need to zoom in here and
perfect. I love it.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Yes. Anyway, this has been great. Thank you again so, so much, Heather. You are adorable and I so appreciate you.
Oh, well, you were a blessing to me. Thanks, Rachel, so much. And I can't wait to chat more and text soon. So, and thank you so much to Rachel's listeners for tuning in and just being part of my chaos. And it was so fun.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, friends, I just want to thank you for listening today. And if this show has meant something to you, please leave a review or rating on whatever platform you're listening to. Also, make sure you follow the show. This helps me continue bringing episodes like this where women can share their stories and link arms together. I hope you feel inspired and refreshed. Now get out there and hustle, girlfriends.